Okay, so welcome back again. Very good morning to all of my dear viewers. Today in this session, I am going to discuss what is the difference between the odds ratio and the relative risk. Two more points. What is the difference between the odds ratio and the relative risk? So let's say the first difference is that we can calculate odds ratio in case of case control study, while we can calculate relative risks in cohort study. So this is the first difference. What are the other difference? In case of odds ratio, we calculate or we try to find how exposure is strongly related to disease or not, or each exposure is related to the disease or not, or the another thing is each exposure having any protective effect on the disease or not. So basically in odds ratio we try to find three things. First, what each disease is strongly related to the exposure or not, means if the exposure is more, the chance of occurring of disease is more or not. The second thing is if odds ratio is a value is equal to 1, then it indicates that there is no any association of exposure with disease, means the exposure neither increase the chance of disease nor decrease. The third thing is if odds ratio value is less than 1, it means it lies between 0 to 1. So if the odds ratio value is lies between 0 to 1, it indicates that the exposure is beneficial for the disease, it not against the disease. This exposure reduces the chance of disease. So three things we try to find in case of odds ratio. Pehla, each exposure is responsible for cause of disease or not. The second thing is each exposure is either cause or disease or not. And the third thing is each exposure is beneficial for the disease or not. So these all three things we are find in case of odds ratio. While in case of relative risk, we try to calculate how exposure is commonly affected exposed population as compared to the non-exposed population. Okay, so one by one we try to read the things. So we start with odds ratio. The first difference I already told to you that odds ratio calculate in case of case control study, while the relative risk is calculated in case of the cohort study. Okay, now we go for the second point. It tells the strength of association. It tells the strength of association of exposure with disease. That is how any exposure is strongly related to the disease or not. Okay, the same thing is related. Written how exposure is strongly related or no related or having protective effect. These three important points are included in case of odds ratio. That is, exposure is either strongly related or having no any relation or having a protective effect. These three things are included in case of the odds ratio. Okay, that means the exposure reduce the chance of disease. Okay, if protective effect means the exposure reduces the chance of disease. Okay, we try to understand by taking some value. If value is lies between 0 to 1, for example, if value comes around 0.8. So if a value is lies between 0 to 1, for example, we take 0.8, it indicates that exposure reduces the chance of disease. Okay. If value is lies between 0 to 1, it says that there is beneficial effects of exposure on disease. They not promote the disease, they basically decrease the disease. Second thing, if value is equal to 1, if odds ratio value is equal to 1, it tells that exposure exposure is not increase nor decrease the disease. If value is come to 1, it indicates that this exposure is neither increase the chance of disease nor decreases the chance of disease. And the third thing is a value is more than 1. It tells that chaos this exposure is increases the chance of disease. If value is more, it means more strong association. If value is 5 and in another case the value is 10, so in the second case it indicates that the second exposure is more strongly related to the disease. So these all things we are trying to find with the help of odds ratio. While in case of relative risks, we try to find that how this exposure are commonly affected the exposed population as compared to the non-exposed population. For example, if a value come around 50, so this 50 indicates that the exposed population having 15 times more risks of development of disease as compared to the non-exposed population. But if the same value, I mean 15 value comes in case of odds ratio, that means it neither tells that 15 times more common in exposed population as compared to the non-exposed population. Here they simply tells yes, there is a strong association between the exposure and the disease, but it not predict that or tells that 15 times more exposure than non-exposed population. These things we find in case of what? Relative risks. So these all are the difference between the odds ratio and the relative risks. I hope you understand it better. Welcome back in next video. Thank you.